Now, if we could please have our speakers for the second panel come up. We are now turning to the War for Free Speech in England and Australia. So this will be the exotic accent section of our program. And so if we could have Kevin Carroll and Tommy Robinson, Debbie Robinson and George Igler come up, please, to the dais. And while they're coming up and the panels are changing, I'm very happy to have our first speaker on this panel here with us today, Debbie Robinson from Australia. I had the great honor and privilege of meeting her last December when I was on a 3-week speaking tour of Australia that was impeccably organized and beautifully carried off by Debbie's organization, the Q Society. But there was, when I was speaking in the state of Victoria in Australia, I was a bit concerned that I might be arrested, because the state of Victoria actually has on the books now a law that is exactly the kind of law that the United Nations, under the aegis of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is trying to impose upon Western countries. And Barack Obama, of course, had signed on and approved Resolution 1618 of the United Nations that calls upon member states to criminalize defamation of religions. In other words, don't say anything negative about Islam. So in Victoria State, there were several years back a couple of Christian preachers who actually were arrested and charged, and one of them was, in his own defense, reading from the Quran at his trial and was told to stop, because for him to read the Quran, it was hate speech. For a Muslim to read the Quran and say, this is the word of Allah that you must obey, that's okay. And so this is the absurdity that is coming to all of our countries. And make no mistake, if Barack Obama is re-elected and continues his anti-free speech program as exemplified by Resolution 1618, then we will be seeing laws like that here. And what David was saying about the treaties trump the First Amendment, that's going to come down to the Supreme Court, and there's no indication, no confidence that anyone should have here that the First Amendment would prevail in that. And we can see from the way that the Second Amendment has been completely defanged in many, many parts of the United States, including New York City. The same thing can happen to the First. And we would then be in essentially an untrammeled tyranny. So Debbie has gone so many hours flying to come all the way around the world to be here. Please welcome Debbie Robinson.
Thank you, Robert, for your introduction and for the invitation to speak in front of this amazing group. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, I can tell you that. I'm so honored to be here. And my name's Debbie, and I'm Deputy President of the Q Society in Australia. And we formed this group in 2010 amidst concerns about the Islamization of our country. We're all volunteers, and we have chapters in each state throughout the country. And our aim is to raise awareness and educate and alert the public to the dangers we face if we don't address certain issues, namely Islam and Sharia. And in Australia, this is being imposed upon us in exactly the same way as it is here in the USA and in Europe. Our politicians speak of multicultural harmony while they attempt to enforce public tolerance of a fascist monoculture. I spoke in Stockholm last month at the recent Zion meeting, and I talked about the problems we've experienced in Australia, so I won't go into that tonight. But tonight I hope to bring a bit of a message of hope, and I'll outline in Australia how we are taking this fight to the enemy and having victories and closing the doors on jihad factories. 5 years ago, and prior to 2008, Islamic projects such as new mosques and schools, prayer halls, and Islamic centres would simply go ahead in Australia with little or no opposition. Just a rubber stamp operation. But for the past 4 years, from 2008 until today, nearly all these projects are being stopped, and fewer are getting through local councils, and even fewer make it through the courts. Before 2008, there were mainstream Muslim imams advising federal and state politicians, and they had the ability to influence our government. But those same imams no longer do this, because they've been caught promoting jihad or lying, and some are facing criminal investigations. And last month, a Sydney-based imam went to Syria, and while leading some men to safety, became the target of a rocket-propelled grenade, so he went one jihad too far. In June 2007, there was a massive Islamic school in Sydney and a much larger mosque in London, England. Both were set to be built, and they would affect the character of those two communities, and the mosque would have changed the classic skyline of London. Although on opposite sides of the earth, the two projects were run by the same Pakistani Wahhabi group, Tabligh Jamaat. Two groups stood up and opposed these developments. They were Councillor Alan Craig, who took his defence to the public via television, media and YouTube, and also Minister Fred Nile, who's in Camden, Australia. He went to the media and clearly questioned who these people were and where the money was coming from. Lots of citizens rallied around and supported these individuals, and they worked together, and in each case they had very little funding. And on June the 2nd and the 21st, 2008, both these Wahhabi projects were defeated through civil action in back-to-back court decisions. But this wasn't simply good luck. The victories were the result of hard work and time spent by many people linking together to achieve the same result. And we've seen victories in Europe and a dozen local cases in the UK which were successfully opposed by the EDL. And I really feel we need to support the EDL because they're doing great work. And in Australia we've had some victories, including fending off attempted mosquings, 2 madrasas, a Markazi and Islamic History Museum, and currently Perth, Canberra and the Gold Coast are all engaged in fighting. So these battles conducted by different groups in different countries and court systems follow similar legal rules. It's this similarity